Hey guys, tonight we're going on a little trip way back to a time when your healthcare wasn't exactly what you'd call a quick trip to the urgent care clinic. Imagine a world where the closest thing to a doctor's office was often a dusty temple, and your prescription might just be a vivid dream or a plea to the gods. You're walking the sun-baked streets of ancient Greece, a land of philosophers and warriors, but also of festering wounds and mysterious ailments. The air is thick with the scent of olive oil sweat and perhaps a faint, lingering whiff of something less pleasant. You see people going about their daily lives strong and resilient, yet always just one bad harvest or one unlucky bite away from an illness that could easily claim them. No antibiotics, no sterile operating rooms, no painkillers beyond perhaps a swig of strong wine. You might find yourself leaning on a rough-hewn staff feeling a persistent ache in your joints, or a fever burning through you and your options are well limited. In this world, a sprained ankle could be a life-altering event, a simple cough could escalate into something fatal, and childbirth was truly a roll of the dice. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive a week, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a world where the line between medicine and mythology is incredibly blurry, almost non-existent. When you feel that first pang of illness, that gnawing ache in your stomach, or that sudden chill down your spine, your first instinct isn't to reach for a thermometer. Instead, your gaze might drift towards the towering temples, dedicated to the gods, particularly to Asclepius, the god of healing. You see others just like you offering small sacrifices, a coin, a piece of fruit, a lock of hair, whispering fervent prayers hoping for divine intervention. This isn't just a quaint custom. It's a fundamental pillar of your healthcare system. You understand deep in your bones that the gods capricious and powerful hold your fate and your health in their hands. Your daily life is intertwined with this belief. You wake with the sun, the air crisp and cool, and perhaps you perform a small ritual, a libation poured for Hygeia, the goddess of health, or Panacea, who embodies universal remedy. You watch as farmers tend their fields, their bodies hardened by labor, yet even they are not immune to the sudden onset of disease. You see a child with a hacking cough, their mother frantically offering prayers at the household altar. The understanding is clear. Illness isn't just a physical affliction. It's often seen as a punishment from the gods, a sign of their displeasure, or perhaps a test of your piety. This belief shapes every aspect of how you perceive and react to sickness. When a fever takes hold, making your limbs heavy and your head throb, you might not rush to a physician. Instead, your family might gather chanting ancient incantations passed down through generations. They might prepare a special poultice of herbs, not just for their physical properties, but for the magical essence they are believed to possess. You feel the cool, damp leaves pressed against your forehead, the bitter taste of a concoction on your tongue, and you trust in the wisdom of your elders who have seen countless others suffer and sometimes recover. The effectiveness of these remedies is often attributed to the favor of the gods rather than any intrinsic medicinal property. This blend of folk remedies, ritual, and unwavering faith is your primary line of defense against the relentless onslaught of disease. As you move through your day, you hear whispers of certain individuals who possess unique knowledge, the iatroi, or physicians, though their methods might seem rudimentary by modern standards. These aren't doctors in sterile white coats. They are often men and sometimes women who have gained practical experience through observation, trial, and error, and a deep understanding of natural remedies. You might see them at the agora, the marketplace, offering advice or tending to the wounds of a soldier. Their tools are simple: a few sharp knives, some bandages made from linen, and an array of herbs in dried pouches. They speak of ailments in terms of imbalances, a concept that will become the cornerstone of ancient Greek medicine, but for now it's still largely overshadowed by divine intervention. You're constantly aware of the fragility of life. A splinter could fester, leading to a crippling infection. A simple fall could result in a broken bone that never quite heals right. You see people with deformities, with limps, with chronic coughs, their lives shaped by ailments that would be easily treatable today. There's a quiet stoicism about it, a resignation to the whims of fate. You learn to live with pain, to accept its presence as a part of existence. The concept of pain management as we know it simply doesn't exist. Your options for relief are limited to sedatives derived from poppy or other plants, often used sparingly and with a deep awareness of their potential for harm. One peculiar aspect of this era is the incubation ritual, a practice where you would sleep in a sacred space, often within a temple of Asclepius, hoping for a dream that would reveal the cure to your ailment. You might spend days preparing purifying yourself with baths and fasting before finally lying down on a simple pallet, surrounded by other hopefuls. The air is thick with expectation, the low murmurs of prayers and the gentle flickering of oil lamps. You close your eyes, your mind racing with anticipation, hoping that Asclepius himself or one of his sacred snakes will appear to you in your slumber offering guidance. Many claim to have received such visions waking with renewed hope and a clear path to healing, even if that path involves strange rituals or unusual concoctions. This practice highlights the deeply spiritual nature of healing in ancient Greece, a truth often overlooked by modern perspectives. The role of the family in your healthcare is paramount. There are no hospitals as you know them. When you fall ill, you are cared for by your immediate family, your mother, your sister, your wife. They are the primary caregivers administering remedies, offering comfort and tending to your needs. They are the ones who will sit by your bedside through long, feverish nights, moistening your lips, changing your bandages, and praying for your recovery. Historians still debate the exact prevalence and influence of female healers outside the domestic sphere, but within the home, their knowledge of herbal remedies and practical care is invaluable. They are the unheralded backbone of the ancient Greek healthcare system, their quiet diligence often the difference between life and death. You might also encounter gymnastai trainers who focus on physical fitness, not just for athletic prowess, but for overall health. They preach the importance of exercise, diet, and balance. You see them guiding young men through strenuous routines, emphasizing strength and agility, believing that a strong body is less susceptible to illness. Their philosophy is that prevention is just as important as cure, a surprisingly modern concept. You might be advised to walk daily, to eat a balanced diet of grains, fruits, and vegetables, and to avoid excesses of food or drink. This holistic approach, combining physical activity with sensible living, is a testament to their understanding of the connection between lifestyle and health, even if they lack the scientific understanding of why these connections exist. Another common sight is the bone setter. If you've suffered a fracture, perhaps from a fall or a sporting mishap, you wouldn't go to an orthopedic surgeon. Instead, you'd seek out a bone setter, often a craftsman or a local who has developed a knack for manipulating limbs and setting breaks. You hear the sharp intake of breath as a dislocated shoulder is popped back into place, or the groans as a broken leg is splinted with rudimentary materials. These individuals, though lacking formal medical training, possess a deep intuitive understanding of the human skeleton. You see them meticulously applying bandages and splints, often using materials like reeds or wood, hoping that the bone will knit cleanly. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, leaving you with a permanent limp or a crooked limb, a constant reminder of the unpredictable nature of ancient healing. The lack of sophisticated diagnostic tools means that much of your healthcare relies on observation and educated guesswork. When you complain of pain, the practitioner will meticulously observe your symptoms, the color of your skin, the clarity of your eyes, the quality of your breath, the consistency of your waist. They'll ask detailed questions about your diet, your sleep, your daily activities. They might even feel your pulse, though their understanding of its significance is far removed from modern cardiology. It's a process of elimination of drawing connections based on years of accumulated wisdom and a surprising amount of common sense. Yet without microscopes or lab tests, many diseases remain a mystery, their causes unknown, their cures elusive. The concept of diet as a form of medicine is also prevalent. You are often advised to eat specific foods or to abstain from others depending on your ailment. For a fever, perhaps a lighter diet of gruel and water. For digestive issues, certain herbs or broths are recommended. This isn't just about nutrition. It's about the belief that certain foods possess innate qualities, hot or cold, wet or dry, that can influence the body's internal balance. You might be prescribed a specific type of bread or encouraged to consume more figs or to avoid certain types of meat. This dietary approach, while not always scientifically sound, often reflects a practical understanding of how food affects the body, a wisdom gleaned from centuries of observation. One fascinating and perhaps unsettling aspect of ancient Greek healthcare is the role of ex voto offerings. These are small sculptures or plaques often depicting the healed body part, offered to a god, typically Asclepius, as a token of gratitude for a cure. You see them adorning the walls of temples, tiny bronze legs, marble eyes, clay ears, a silent testament to both the suffering and the hope of the people. They serve as a physical record of successful healings, reinforcing the belief in divine intervention. You might even consider commissioning one yourself if you recover from a particularly nasty illness, a public declaration of your gratitude and a reinforcement of the communal belief system. It's a powerful visual representation of the symbiotic relationship between faith and healing in this ancient world. The idea of humoral theory, while not fully developed in the earliest periods, is beginning to take root. You hear murmurs of the four fundamental fluids, blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and how their balance or imbalance dictates health and disease. This is a revolutionary concept, shifting the focus from purely divine punishment to an internal physiological explanation for illness. It means that while you still pray to the gods, there's also a growing understanding that your body's internal workings play a significant role. This budding scientific inquiry, though still intertwined with superstition, marks a crucial step towards a more rational approach to medicine. You begin to hear physicians discussing your symptoms, in terms of these humors suggesting treatments aimed at restoring their equilibrium, perhaps through diet, exercise, or even bloodletting. You find yourself drawn almost instinctively to the Asclepien, the sacred healing temples dedicated to Asclepius. These aren't just places of worship. They are the closest thing you have to hospitals, sanatoriums, and spiritual retreats all rolled into one. You might have traveled a significant distance to get here, perhaps carried on a stretcher, or painstakingly hobbling along driven by the desperate hope for a cure. The air around the Asclepieian is different, a mix of incense, fresh spring water, and the subtle scent of medicinal herbs. You see other supplicants, some limping, some with bandages, all with eyes that hold a flicker of hope and a profound weariness. As you approach, you notice the symbolic imagery everywhere, the serpent-entwined staff of Asclepius, a symbol that even today denotes medicine. This isn't just a pretty design. The snake is believed to be sacred, associated with renewal and rebirth because of its ability to shed its skin. You might even see live non-venomous snakes slithering around the temple grounds, revered and protected. They are not pets, but rather conduits to the divine, believed to carry the healing power of Asclepius himself. The thought of them might make you slightly uneasy, but the promise of healing outweighs any discomfort. Before you can even think about the actual healing, you must undergo a series of purification rituals. You are led to a cleansing spring, its waters cool and bracing. You must bathe, washing away the impurities of the outside world, both physical and spiritual. You might be asked to fast, to abstain from certain foods or pleasures, to prepare your body and mind for the sacred encounter. This isn't just about hygiene. It's about making yourself worthy, opening yourself up to the divine intervention you seek. You spend hours, sometimes days, in this state of purification, the anticipation building with every passing moment. Then comes the most crucial part, incubation or enkoimesis. You are led into the abaton, a sacred sleeping hall within the temple complex. The room is dimly lit, perhaps by oil lamps, and filled with the hushed whispers of other patients. You lie down on a simple pallet, often just a straw mat, surrounded by the hopeful and the desperate. The air is thick with a strange mixture of expectation and anxiety. You are encouraged to fall asleep, for it is in your dreams that Asclepius or his sacred animals are believed to appear to you, offering visions of your cure. You drift off your mind, a swirl of prayers and hopes. In your dream, you might see Asclepius himself, a benevolent figure with a kind face, perhaps accompanied by his daughters. Hygieia, personification of health, or Panacea, goddess of universal remedy. He might speak to you directly, instructing you to perform a specific action, to use a particular herb, or to visit a certain place. Or perhaps a sacred snake will slither over you, its touch bringing a wave of warmth and healing. Some dream of being licked by dogs also sacred to Asclepius, their saliva believed to have curative properties. When you awaken, you rush to recount your dream to the temple priests who act as interpreters, deciphering the cryptic messages of the gods. The cure might not be what you expect. It could be a simple dietary change, an exercise regimen, or the application of a specific ointment. It might be a symbolic act like offering a specific sacrifice or wearing a particular amulet. For instance, if your dream instructed you to eat a certain type of bread, you would meticulously follow that instruction, believing it to be the divine path to recovery. You might even be told to perform a seemingly bizarre act like wrestling a goat or sleeping next to a specific tree, and you would do so without question, convinced of its healing power. The priests acting as intermediaries would often combine these divinely inspired instructions with practical medical advice drawing upon centuries of accumulated knowledge. The effectiveness of these temple cures is a complex matter. While some undoubtedly experience genuine physical improvement, often due to rest better hygiene placebo effect, or the natural course of self-limiting illnesses, the psychological impact was immense. The belief that you were touched by the divine, that a god personally intervened in your health, would be a powerful force. You see others leaving the Asclepieian with renewed vigor, their faces alight with gratitude, often leaving behind votive offerings, small sculptures of the body part that was healed, or sometimes even replicas of the dreams they experienced. These offerings, often made of clay, bronze, or marble, filled the temple, a tangible testament to the perceived efficacy of the sacred healing. Think about the psychological power of this experience. You are immersed in an environment of hope and collective belief. You are cleansed. You fast, you sleep in a sacred space, and you are told that a god will visit you. This intense focus, combined with rest and perhaps some basic medical care provided by the temple attendants, could certainly lead to genuine improvement for certain conditions. Academics still debate the exact ratio of genuine physical healing to psychological benefit within the Asclepieia, but there's no denying the profound impact these sanctuaries had on the lives of ancient Greeks. It's like a spiritual spa mixed with a medical consultation where the doctor is a god. You certainly wouldn't find that on your local health insurance plan. Beyond the dreams, the Asclepieian also employed more tangible methods. You might find yourself being prescribed herbal remedies by the priests who possessed a vast knowledge of medicinal plants. They understood the properties of certain herbs for pain relief, for reducing inflammation, or for aiding digestion. You might be given a decoction of willow bark for fever, an ancient precursor to aspirin, or a poultice of poppy for pain. These remedies, though effective, were often still delivered within the context of divine favor. It wasn't just the herb, it was the sacred herb prepared and administered with the blessing of Asclepius. Another common treatment within the temple grounds was hydrotherapy. The Asclepieian complexes were often built near natural springs, and the healing power of water was greatly emphasized. You might be prescribed specific baths, hot or cold, long or short, or directed to drink from certain sacred wells. The invigorating effect of the water, combined with the belief in its divine properties, contributed to the healing process. You might spend hours soaking in mineral-rich pools, feeling your aches and pains slowly dissipate the cool water, a balm to your weary body. It's like a very, very old-school version of a modern-day spa, but with a lot more prayer. You also observe the presence of temple attendants and even medical practitioners who were associated with the Asclepieian. While the divine aspect was paramount, there was also a practical side. These individuals would assist the priests, help with the purification rituals, and sometimes even offer rudimentary medical advice or perform minor procedures like setting simple fractures or dressing wounds. They were the practical arm of the healing process, bridging the gap between divine intervention and earthly care. Their presence ensures that even if Asclepius didn't appear in your dream, you still received some form of tangible assistance. The stories of miraculous cures from the Asclepieia spread far and wide, drawing people from all corners of the Greek world. You hear tales of the blind regaining sight, the lame walking again, and the chronically ill finding relief. These stories, often embellished and shared orally, fuel the hope of others, encouraging them to undertake arduous journeys to seek healing. The temples become centers of pilgrimage, bustling with activity, a constant flow of the sick arriving, and the seemingly cured departing, their testimonies reinforcing the power of Asclepius. It's an ancient form of marketing driven by faith and anecdotal evidence far more powerful than any modern advertisement. Even after you leave the Asclepeion, the experience stays with you. You carry the memory of the sacred dreams, the soothing baths, and the whispers of divine intervention. You might continue to wear an amulet or perform small rituals in your home, forever grateful for the healing you received, or the hope that was instilled. The Asclepieia wasn't just a place of physical healing, it was a sanctuary for the mind and spirit, offering solace and meaning. In a world where illness was often terrifying and inexplicable. This blend of spiritual and physical care represents the foundational approach to wellness in ancient Greece, a system where faith and practical remedies danced hand in hand. As you move beyond the temples and the whispers of divine intervention, you encounter a more structured, albeit still rudimentary approach to understanding the human body and its ailments. The theory of the four humors. This concept, which will dominate Western medicine for nearly 2 millennia, is slowly but surely taking root, offering a seemingly logical explanation for why you get sick and how you might get better. You hear the more learned iatroi, the physicians, discussing these humors with great conviction, and their words begin to shape your understanding of your own internal landscape. Imagine your body as a delicate balance of four fundamental fluids: blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Each of these humors is associated with specific qualities and elements. Blood is hot and wet, linked to air. Phlegm is cold and wet, tied to water. Yellow bile is hot and dry, connected to fire, and black bile is cold and dry, associated with earth. You learn that health is a state of perfect equilibrium among these humors. When you feel vigorous, when your mind is clear and your body strong, it's because these four fluids are flowing in harmonious proportion within you. But when you fall ill, it's because this delicate balance has been disrupted. You might have an excess of one humor or deficiency of another. For instance, if you're suffering from a fever with flushed skin and a rapid pulse, the physician might diagnose an excess of blood, hot and wet. If you're lethargic and coughing up mucus, it might be an overabundance of phlegm, cold and wet. The symptoms you experience aren't just random. They are manifestations of these internal imbalances. It's like your body has an internal thermostat, but instead of temperature, it's regulating these four mysterious fluids. A bit like trying to fix a leaky faucet by adjusting the air conditioning. This theory provides a framework for diagnosis that goes beyond just praying to Asclepius. When you visit an iatros, they won't just ask about your dreams. They'll observe your complexion, feel your pulse, examine your urine and stools, and inquire about your diet and lifestyle. Every detail is a clue, helping them to determine which humor is out of whack. If your skin is jaundiced, they might suspect an excess of yellow bile. If you're prone to melancholy and sluggishness, black bile might be the culprit. It's a surprisingly systematic approach, even if the underlying premise is, from a modern perspective, entirely incorrect. Once the imbalance is identified, the goal of treatment is to restore equilibrium. This is where things get interesting and sometimes a little uncomfortable. If you have an excess of blood, the most common remedy is bloodletting. You wince as a sharp blade is used to make an incision, or leeches are applied to your skin, draining a small amount of blood into a basin. The idea is to literally remove the excess humor, bringing the levels back into balance. You might feel weak afterwards, but the physician assures you it's for your own good, and you trust their judgment, hoping the pain will lead to recovery. This practice, by the way, will persist for an astonishingly long time in medical history. For an excess of phlegm, you might be given emetics to induce vomiting, or purgatives to clear your bowels. The goal is to expel the offending humor from your body. You experience the violent contractions, the unpleasant taste, but again, it's all in the name of restoring balance. It's a rather aggressive form of detoxification, one that doesn't always consider the patient's comfort or overall strength. It's like trying to clean a clogged drain by flooding the whole house. Messy, but they believe it gets the job done. Diet also plays a crucial role in humoral therapy. If you have an excess of a hot humor like yellow bile, you might be prescribed cooling foods such as lettuce, cucumbers, or barley water. If you're suffering from an excess of cold, phlegm, warm, and dry foods like garlic or spicy herbs might be recommended. This careful regulation of food is an attempt to introduce counteracting qualities into your body, helping to rebalance the humors. You learn to be mindful of what you eat, seeing your meals not just as sustenance but as medicine. Historians still debate the exact origins of humoral theory, whether it emerged organically from observation or was heavily influenced by philosophical ideas of the elements, but its impact on dietetics is undeniable. Beyond diet and direct expulsion, other treatments aim to modify the humors indirectly. Cupping, where heated cups are applied to the skin to create suction, is believed to draw out bad humors. Bathing in hot or cold water is used to manipulate body temperature and, by extension, the humors. Exercise, too, is seen as a way to maintain humoral balance, ensuring proper circulation and preventing stagnation. You might be advised to walk to run or to engage in wrestling, all with the explicit aim of keeping your internal fluids in optimal flow. This theoretical framework, though, flawed, provides a sense of control in a world where illness often feels arbitrary and terrifying. It gives physicians a language to describe disease, a method for diagnosis, and a rationale for treatment. Even if the treatments are sometimes harsh, they are based on a coherent, albeit incorrect system. When a physician explains your condition in terms of humors, it brings a certain intellectual satisfaction, a feeling that your suffering is understood even if the understanding is based on an elaborate metaphor. It's a system that brings order to chaos, at least in their minds. You notice that different physicians might interpret the humoral theory slightly differently, leading to variations in treatment. One might advocate for more aggressive bloodletting, while another might prefer a more gentle dietary approach. This isn't seen as a weakness of the theory, but rather as individual physicians' skill in applying it. It's a bit like different chefs using the same basic ingredients, but coming up with vastly different dishes. The underlying belief in the humors remains constant, but the application varies. The humoral theory also extends to understanding personality and temperament. You hear people described as sanguine, optimistic, and social with an abundance of blood, choleric, irritable and ambitious linked to yellow bile, phlegmatic, calm and unemotional associated with phlegm or melancholic, thoughtful and depressed due to an excess of black bile. This means your very character is thought to be influenced by the balance of these internal fluids. If you're feeling particularly grumpy, it's not just a bad mood, it's a humoral imbalance. This adds another layer of complexity to your understanding of yourself and others, weaving health, personality, and even destiny into one grand interconnected system. The widespread acceptance of humoral theory means that almost every aspect of your life, from your diet to your emotional state, is viewed through this lens. If you're feeling sluggish after a heavy meal, it might be due to an excess of phlegm. If you're easily angered, it's those fiery yellow bile levels. This creates a constant awareness of your internal state, prompting you to seek balance in all things. It's a holistic view where mind and body are inextricably linked, even if the specific mechanisms they propose are far off the mark. Despite its ultimate inaccuracies, the humoral theory represents a significant leap forward from purely supernatural explanations for disease. It introduces the idea that illness originates within the body rather than being solely imposed from external divine forces. This shift in perspective opens the door for observation, logical deduction, and the development of systematic medical practices. It's the beginning of scientific thought in medicine, even if it's still clinging to some rather imaginative concepts. It's like discovering the blueprint for a complex machine, only to find out it's drawn in crayon. With the theoretical framework of the humors in place, you now delve into the practical side of ancient Greek medicine, the fascinating, often perilous world of herbal remedies and ancient pharmacy. Forget sterile bottles and perfectly measured doses. Here, your pharmacy is the natural world itself, and your pharmacist is someone with an intimate, often mystical knowledge of plants. You find yourself observing practitioners or even engaging in the gathering yourself, understanding that the earth provides both sustenance and salvation. You learn quickly that the efficacy of a plant isn't just about its chemical properties. It's about its inherent nature, its association with the humors, and sometimes its connection to the divine. A plant that is hot and dry might be used to counteract an excess of cold and wet phlegm. The color smell and even the habitat of a plant all contribute to its perceived medicinal value. It's a system built on observation tradition and a good deal of trial and error passed down through generations. Imagine walking through a sun-drenched field or a shadowed forest, your guide perhaps an experienced rhizotomoid root cutter or a knowledgeable matriarch pointing out various plants. This, she might say, holding up a stalk of willow bark, is for fevers and pain. You watch as she scrapes away the outer layer, explaining that a decoction made from it will ease your aches. Unbeknownst to you, this is the ancient world's aspirin containing salicin, the precursor to salicylic acid. It's effective, but the dosage is based on intuition, not precise measurement, meaning you might get too little or more dangerously too much. Then there's the poppy. Its beautiful, delicate flowers belie the powerful sedative contained within its milky sap. You learn that a small amount can soothe pain and induce sleep, a blessing, in a world without modern analgesics. But you also learn through cautionary tales that too much can lead to an eternal sleep. The line between medicine and poison is incredibly fine, often dependent on a single extra drop or a slightly larger leaf. This is a recurring theme in ancient pharmacy. The very substance that heals can also kill. Scholars continue to debate the extent to which ancient physicians truly understood the concept of dosage versus general potency, but their practical application often relied on careful observation of the patient's reaction. You see garlic being used not just for cooking, but as a powerful antiseptic and a general tonic. It's believed to ward off illness, strengthen the body, and even protect against evil spirits. You might be told to consume it regularly to maintain good health, its pungent aroma a constant companion. Cabbage, too, surprisingly, is highly valued, believed to be a cure-all for various ailments from digestive issues to skin problems. You might find yourself chewing on its raw leaves, grimacing at the taste, but hopeful for its reported healing properties. The preparation of these remedies is an art form. You watch as roots are ground into fine powders, leaves are steeped in hot water to create infusions, and oils are pressed from seeds to be used as balms. Sometimes multiple ingredients are combined, their properties believed to synergize. A common practice is the creation of electuaries, which are medicinal pastes made by mixing herbs with honey. This makes the bitter taste more palatable and also acts as a preservative. Imagine trying to swallow a spoonful of bitter herbs mixed with sticky sweet honey, a truly ancient spoonful of medicine. You might encounter more exotic ingredients too, perhaps imported from distant lands. Frankincense and myrrh, famous for their use in religious ceremonies, are also employed for their perceived medicinal properties, particularly for their anti-inflammatory and antiseptic qualities. You might see them burned as incense, their fragrant smoke believed to purify the air and aid in respiration. The rarity and cost of such ingredients also adds to their mystique and perceived power. Beyond ingestion or external application, some remedies involve fumigation or inhalation. Dried herbs might be burned, and the patient instructed to inhale the smoke, particularly for respiratory ailments. The fumes from certain plants are believed to clear congested airways or even ward off unseen miasmas. The bad air believed to cause disease. It's a primitive form of aromatherapy, aiming to influence the humors through the sense of smell and direct contact with the respiratory system. However, not all pharmaceuticals are plant-based. You also see the use of mineral substances and even animal products. Clay rich in minerals might be applied to wounds or ingested for digestive upset. Lead, though toxic, is sometimes used in ointments or cosmetics, its dangers not fully understood. You might also encounter remedies involving strange concoctions of animal parts, a pulverized lizard for an eye ailment, or a broth made from specific organs for strength. These practices highlight the desperate nature of ancient medicine, where every potential source of healing, no matter how unusual, is explored. One less-known aspect is the reliance on local knowledge. While renowned physicians existed for most common ailments, you'd turn to a village elder, a midwife, or a local herb gatherer. These individuals might not have formalized medical training, but they possessed a deep empirical understanding of the plants and remedies specific to their region. They were the frontline healthcare providers, their wisdom accumulated over generations of observation and practice. It's like having Google Maps for plants, but instead of an app, it's a wise old woman with dirt under her fingernails. The process of diagnosis is intimately tied to the choice of remedy. If you present with a fever and believe you have an excess of yellow bile, the physician will select herbs that are considered cooling and moistening to rebalance that humor. The remedy is not just for the symptom, but for the underlying humoral imbalance believed to cause it. It's a beautifully intricate, if scientifically flawed, system of classification and treatment. You also recognize the inherent risks in this system. Without standardized measurements, quality control, or a deep understanding of toxicology, accidental poisoning is a constant threat. A plant gathered at the wrong time of year or from the wrong soil might have different potencies. A slight miscalculation in preparation could turn a healing draft into a lethal brew. You learn to trust, but also to be cautious, always aware of the fine line between cure and catastrophe. Historians still debate the frequency of accidental poisonings from medicinal herbs in ancient Greece, but given the lack of precise knowledge, it was undoubtedly a significant concern. The most potent and respected healers are often those who master this complex botanical knowledge, combining it with their understanding of humoral theory and their ability to interpret divine signs. They are the true ancient pharmacists, their hands stained with the juices of plants, their minds filled with generations of accumulated wisdom. Your health, your very survival, often rests in their hands, guided by a pharmacopoeia written not in books but in the fields and forests around you. It's a pharmacy of life and death, vibrant with nature's power and fraught with its inherent dangers. You brace yourself as you enter the realm of ancient Greek surgery, a world that is less about sterile precision and more about raw courage, quick hands, and an almost brutal practicality. This isn't the gleaming, technologically advanced operating room of today. It's a dusty, often dimly lit space, perhaps a tent on a battlefield, a simple room in a private home, or a makeshift area in a temple. The air hangs heavy with anticipation, and the smells are distinctly unpleasant sweat blood and the acrid tang of cauterizing irons. You realize very quickly that if you needed surgery in ancient Greece, your chances of surviving the procedure, let alone recovering fully, were incredibly slim. It's like being asked to fix a broken clock with a hammer and a prayer. The primary reason for this grim outlook, the complete absence of anesthesia as you know it. When a limb needs setting, a wound needs stitching, or an arrow needs extracting, you are wide awake, feeling every excruciating moment. Pain relief is rudimentary at best, limited to perhaps a strong draught of poppy juice or a swig of potent wine, neither of which truly dulls the agony of a scalpel cutting into flesh or bone being reset. You hear the screams of patients, their agony echoing the stark reality of surgical intervention. The surgeon's speed, therefore, is paramount. The quicker they work, the less suffering for the patient, and paradoxically, the higher the chance of survival from shock. Infection is the silent, ubiquitous killer. There's no understanding of microbes, bacteria, or viruses. Surgical tools, though sharp, are rarely, if ever, sterilized. Hands are washed in water, but cleanliness is far from absolute. Wounds are often left open or dressed with unsterile materials like lint or animal fat, providing a perfect breeding ground for pathogens. You might survive the surgery itself only to succumb days later to a raging fever, pus-filled abscesses, and a spreading gangrene that slowly consumes your flesh. The outcome of almost any invasive procedure is a gamble against the unseen enemy that is infection. Scholars continue to debate the extent to which ancient Greeks understood basic hygiene principles versus true germ theory, but the lack of sterile environments was an undeniable factor in high mortality rates. Despite these terrifying limitations, ancient Greek surgeons were remarkably skilled within their constraints, particularly when it came to trauma and battlefield injuries. You see them meticulously extracting arrowheads, setting fractured bones with surprising accuracy, and even performing rudimentary amputations. Their knowledge of anatomy, though not as detailed as later periods, was gained through observation of war wounds, animal dissection, and perhaps, though rarely admitted, the occasional human dissection. They understood the general layout of bones and major organs, which allowed them to perform certain procedures with a degree of precision. One common surgical procedure you might witness is the setting of fractures and dislocations. If you've broken a bone, the surgeon will manually manipulate the limb feeling for the correct alignment. You hear the sickening crunch as bone grinds against bone, your muscles screaming in protest. Once aligned, the limb is immobilized with splints made from reed's wood or even hardened clay bound tightly with linen bandages. The process is painful but often effective in allowing bones to knit, though you might be left with a noticeable deformity or a permanent limp. For superficial wounds, especially those sustained in combat, surgeons employ various methods of wound closure. You might see them using needles and thread made from linen animal sinew or even bronze wire to stitch together lacerations. For deeper wounds, they might use cauterization, the application of a heated iron, to seal blood vessels and stop bleeding. The searing pain is agonizing, and the smell of burning flesh is stomach-churning, but it is an effective, if brutal, method to prevent fatal blood loss. You might also see them packing wounds with various substances, sometimes herbs, sometimes even more questionable materials, hoping to promote healing or ward off infection. Then there are the more advanced and truly perilous procedures. Trepanation, the drilling of a hole into the skull, is surprisingly common, often performed to relieve pressure from head injuries, or more mysteriously to treat mental illness, epilepsy, or chronic headaches. You watch horrified as a circular saw or a drill-like instrument slowly grinds through the bone, exposing the pulsating membrane beneath. The patient, if conscious, writhes in agony. Miraculously, some survive bearing the telltale hole in their skull, as a testament to their ordeal and the surgeon's questionable success. Other procedures include the removal of bladder stones, a torturous process that involves making an incision near the perineum and extracting the stone with forceps, or the lancing of abscesses draining collections of pus, a procedure that offers immediate relief but also carries a high risk of spreading infection. You also hear of cataract couching, where a sharp instrument is used to dislodge the cloudy lens of the eye, pushing it down and out of the field of vision. This could restore some sight, but often led to further complications or complete blindness. The surgical instruments themselves are surprisingly varied and well-crafted. You might see bronze or iron scalpels, sharp and finely ground, used for incisions. Forceps of various sizes are used for grasping and extracting. There are specialized bone levers for manipulating fractures, and specula for examining orifices. While lacking the precision of modern tools, they represent a significant level of metallurgical and engineering skill for their time. The problem isn't the tools, it's the lack of understanding of what truly makes a surgical environment safe. The surgeon's role is not just technical, it also demands a certain psychological fortitude. They must be able to withstand the patient's screams, the sight of blood, and the constant awareness of imminent death. They are often seen as skilled craftsmen, similar to a carpenter or a blacksmith, their work requiring manual dexterity and a strong stomach. Their reputation rests on their successes, but also on their ability to convincingly explain their failures, often attributed to the will of the gods or the patient's inherent bad humors. You also learn that surgery is often a last resort. Given the immense risks, most people would exhaust all other options: prayers, herbal remedies, temple incubation, dietary changes before consenting to the surgeon's knife. The decision to undergo surgery is a desperate gamble, a final throw of the dice against the inevitable. It's a testament to the pain and suffering of certain conditions that people would choose such a terrifying path. One peculiar detail is the role of physician soldiers, who gained extensive surgical experience on the battlefield. War, brutal as it is, inadvertently became a school for surgeons. They learned firsthand about anatomy, wound management, and the immediate effects of trauma. Many of the descriptions of surgical procedures found in ancient texts are derived from these practical, often horrific experiences. It's a stark reminder that necessity is truly the mother of invention, even in the realm of battlefield medicine. Despite the primitive nature of their methods, ancient Greek surgeons laid some of the groundwork for later medical advancements. Their detailed observations of wounds, their classification of injuries, and their practical application of tools and techniques represent an early form of empirical medical practice. They learned by doing, often with tragic consequences, but their accumulated knowledge slowly, painstakingly contributed to the ever-evolving understanding of the human body and how to repair it. Having navigated the individual struggles with illness and the terrifying prospect of ancient surgery, you now encounter the broader, often overwhelming challenges of public health and sanitation woes in ancient Greece. This isn't just about your personal well-being. It's about the health of the entire community, and you quickly realize that for all their philosophical brilliance and architectural marvels, the Greeks faced immense hurdles in keeping their cities healthy. The underlying infrastructure for true public health simply doesn't exist in the way you know it, leading to a constant, subtle threat lingering in the very air and water you consume. Imagine walking through the crowded streets of a bustling city like Athens or Corinth. The air is thick with the dust of unpaved roads, the smoke from countless hearths, and the pungent smell of refuse. Waste management, if it can even be called that, is rudimentary. Human and animal excrement is often discarded directly into the streets or into rudimentary cesspits that overflow during heavy rains. You carefully navigate around puddles of stagnant water, a breeding ground for mosquitoes and other disease vectors. This pervasive lack of proper waste disposal is a constant source of contamination, a lurking menace that affects everyone. Water supply is another critical concern. While some cities boast impressive aqueducts bringing fresh spring water from distant sources, its distribution within the city is often haphazard. People draw water from public fountains, wells, or cisterns, which can easily become contaminated by surface runoff or inadequate sewage systems. You're constantly aware of the quality of the water you drink. A bad batch can lead to widespread stomach ailments, a common and debilitating problem. There's no concept of water purification or chlorination, so every sip is a minor gamble. Historians still debate the true effectiveness of ancient Greek aqueducts in maintaining water purity compared to simply providing access, but the threat of contamination remained. Food safety is similarly fraught with peril. Without refrigeration, food spoils quickly, especially meat and fish. Markets are open air, exposed to dust flies and animal waste. You see vendors hawking their wares, but you also witness the rapid deterioration of perishable goods. Foodborne illnesses are common, leading to bouts of vomiting, diarrhea, and fever that can quickly dehydrate and weaken even the strongest individual. There are no health inspectors, no regulations on cleanliness, and certainly no expiry dates. You learn to be discerning, trusting your senses and your luck with every meal. It's a bit like dining at a street food festival where every bite is an adventure and sometimes a regret. Overcrowding in urban centers exacerbates these issues. Homes are often small and tightly packed with little ventilation. Families live in close quarters, making the spread of infectious diseases incredibly efficient. If one person falls ill with a cough or a fever, it's only a matter of time before the entire household and perhaps the neighbors succumb. There's no concept of isolation or quarantine outside of perhaps extreme cases like leprosy, so illnesses sweep through communities with terrifying speed. You witness the devastating impact of these outbreaks, seeing families decimated and entire neighborhoods gripped by fear. The lack of proper sanitation extends to personal hygiene, which, while practiced in some forms, is not universally understood in a germ theory context. You bathe often in public baths, which, while social hubs, can also contribute to the spread of skin conditions and other ailments if not properly maintained. Soap, as you know it, doesn't exist. Instead, olive oil and strigil scrapers are used to cleanse the skin. While people strive for cleanliness, the fundamental understanding of microscopic pathogens is absent meaning. Efforts are often insufficient to prevent disease. Think about the impact of this on daily life. A simple trip to the public latrine, often communal and unhygienic, is an exposure risk. The flies buzzing around garbage heaps are not just annoying, they are vectors of disease. The very air you breathe, laden with particulate matter, and the effluvia of human activity carries unseen threats. It's a constant low-level war against an invisible enemy fought without weapons or strategy. Despite these challenges, there were some nascent attempts at public health initiatives. Some cities invested in drainage systems to remove excess water and prevent stagnant pools, though these were often for convenience rather than explicit health reasons. You might see efforts to pave some main roads, reducing dust and mud. There's also a cultural emphasis on exercise and physical fitness through gymnasia and athletic competitions, which indirectly contributed to overall societal health by promoting stronger bodies. These are isolated efforts, however, not part of a comprehensive public health strategy. The concept of miasma theory is a prevailing belief that attempts to explain the spread of disease. It suggests that illnesses are caused by bad air or noxious fumes arising from decaying organic matter, stagnant water, or unburied corpses. While incorrect, this theory did lead to some beneficial practices, such as attempts to ventilate homes and public spaces and to clear away obvious sources of stench. You might see people carrying perfumed cloths to their noses in particularly foul-smelling areas, believing it would ward off disease. This theory, though mistaken, at least spurred some rudimentary efforts at environmental cleanliness, even if the true mechanisms of disease transmission remained a mystery. Epidemics, when they strike, are truly devastating. You witness cities gripped by plagues where death tolls soar and the social fabric begins to fray. People flee in panic, abandoning the sick, and fear consumes the remaining population. Without understanding the cause or effective treatment, prayer and desperate, often ineffective remedies are the only recourse. The plague of Athens, for example, which ravaged the city during the Peloponnesian War, is a chilling testament to the vulnerability of ancient societies to infectious diseases. You see its after effects: orphaned children, decimated families, and a profound sense of loss that hangs heavy in the air. The lack of public health infrastructure also means that individual resilience and a strong immune system are paramount for survival. Those who survive childhood and repeated exposures to various pathogens often develop a degree of immunity, but this comes at a terrible cost. The average lifespan is significantly shorter than today, and childhood mortality rates are tragically high, a direct consequence of the challenging public health environment. In this context, the role of the iatros, or even the temple healer, extends beyond individual patients. They are sometimes called upon to advise on communal issues, though their knowledge of prevention is limited. They might recommend better drainage or advise against certain practices based on observed patterns of illness, but their impact on large-scale public health is often minimal. Scholars still debate the extent of organized public health initiatives in various Greek city-states, but it is generally accepted that most efforts were reactive and localized rather than proactive and systemic. So, while you might admire the intellectual achievements of the ancient Greeks, you also develop a profound appreciation for modern sanitation and public health systems. The ability to drink clean water, to dispose of waste safely, and to live in an environment free from constant microbial threat is a luxury entirely unknown to the inhabitants of this brilliant but unsanitary world. You breathe a quiet sigh of relief that you don't have to worry about the contents of your neighbor's chamber pot spilling onto your pathway or about contracting a deadly illness from a seemingly innocuous meal. Having glimpsed the broader challenges of communal health, you now shift your focus to a very specific, yet profoundly important aspect of ancient Greek healthcare: women's health, and the practice of midwifery. This is a realm largely dominated by women for women, and it operates with its own unique set of traditions, knowledge, and formidable challenges. You realize that while male physicians might tend to general ailments, the intimate and often dangerous journey of childbirth and the everyday concerns of female bodies largely remain in the hands of skilled, experienced women. Imagine a scene within a private home away from the public gaze of the agora or the male-dominated gymnasia. Here, the expertise of the Maya or midwife is paramount. When a woman is in labor, it is not a male physician who is called, but a woman who has witnessed countless births, who understands the rhythms of the female body, and who possesses the practical knowledge passed down through generations. These women are the unsung heroes of ancient Greek healthcare, literally holding life in their hands during the most perilous moments. You learn that childbirth in ancient Greece is an incredibly dangerous undertaking, a leading cause of mortality for women. There are no epidurals, no C-sections in the modern sense, and no concept of prenatal care beyond perhaps ensuring a woman remains healthy through diet. When labor begins, the woman is typically supported in an upright or squatting position, often on a birthing chair to utilize gravity. The midwife guides the process, offering encouragement, applying herbal compresses, and sometimes even physically manipulating the baby to aid delivery. The screams of the birthing woman are a raw, visceral sound, a testament to the agony and the incredible risk involved. The midwife's skill is based on immense practical experience. She knows how to recognize complications: a breech birth, a prolonged labor, excessive bleeding. Her tools are her hands, her knowledge of anatomy gained through observation, and a small collection of herbs. She might use oxytocin-stimulating herbs to encourage contractions, or apply astringent herbs to staunch bleeding after delivery. In dire circumstances, she might resort to rudimentary instruments, but intervention is minimal and carries extreme risk for both mother and child. Scholars continue to debate the exact nature and frequency of instrumental deliveries by ancient Greek midwives, but it is generally accepted they were rare and employed only as a last resort. Beyond childbirth, midwives and other experienced women are also the primary providers of care for a range of gynecological issues. Women, due to societal norms, were often reluctant or forbidden to expose themselves to male physicians for intimate health concerns. Thus, female healers addressed issues like menstrual irregularities, infertility contraception, though highly unreliable, and sexually transmitted infections. Their knowledge was often a blend of folk wisdom, herbal remedies, and practical advice tailored to the specific needs and taboos surrounding female bodies. You might hear whispers of strange and often misguided theories surrounding women's health. The concept of the wandering womb is particularly prevalent. It is believed that the uterus, starved of moisture or wanting to conceive, could detach and roam freely within the female body, causing a variety of ailments from suffocation to hysteria. Treatments for this bizarre affliction might involve fumigating the vagina with unpleasant smells to repel the womb, or with sweet smells to entice it back into place. It's a testament to the pervasive lack of accurate anatomical and physiological understanding, particularly concerning female reproductive health. Contraception and abortion, while often shrouded in secrecy and ethical debate, were also part of the midwife's purview, albeit with limited and often dangerous methods. Various herbs were used as emmenagogues to induce menstruation or abortifacients, though their effectiveness was highly variable and often resulted in severe side effects or death for the woman. Herbal pessaries inserted vaginally were also employed for contraception, though again their reliability was dubious at best. The control over one's fertility was a constant struggle, often with life-threatening consequences. You also observe the significant social and cultural context surrounding women's health. Childbearing was central to a woman's identity and value in ancient Greek society. Infertility was a source of great distress and sometimes social stigma. The health of a woman was often seen through the lens of her reproductive capacity. This societal pressure undoubtedly influenced the care sought and the desperate measures sometimes taken to ensure fertility and successful childbirth. The knowledge base of these female healers was largely empirical and passed down orally. There were few written treatises on midwifery or gynecology by women themselves, making their vast accumulated wisdom somewhat invisible to the formal historical record, which largely focused on male physicians. This means much of what we know about their practices comes from references in male medical texts, often with a dismissive or critical tone. This highlights a significant historical bias where the crucial work of female healers was often undervalued or unacknowledged. Despite the challenges, the skills of the Maya were deeply respected within their communities. They were indispensable figures often present at the most intimate and vulnerable moments of a woman's life. Their quiet resilience, their hands-on experience, and their profound understanding of practical care were essential for the continuation of society itself. They were not just delivering babies, they were guardians of life, navigating a perilous path with courage and accumulated wisdom. As you venture deeper into the nuances of ancient Greek healing, you discover that some of the most profound insights into medicine didn't come solely from temple priests or practical midwives, but from the very minds that shaped philosophy, mathematics, and politics. You encounter the fascinating phenomenon of philosophers as physicians, individuals who saw the human body and its ailments not just as physical manifestations, but as intricate puzzles to be understood through logic, observation, and rational inquiry. This is where the seeds of scientific medicine truly begin to sprout, nurtured by the relentless curiosity of some of the greatest thinkers in history. Imagine yourself in a bustling Greek city, perhaps in a quiet courtyard or a shaded stoa, listening to a group of learned men debating not just the nature of justice or the cosmos, but the causes of fever or the function of the lungs. These aren't separate disciplines to them. Philosophy, science, and medicine are deeply interconnected, all part of a larger quest for understanding the world. You realize that for many of these intellectuals, the study of the human body was simply another facet of the broader natural world governed by universal laws that could be discovered through reason. The most prominent figure in this intellectual revolution is, of course, Hippocrates of Kos. Though much about his life is shrouded in legend, his influence is undeniable. You hear his name whispered with reverence, associated with a collection of texts that laid the foundation for rational medicine. This isn't just about praying to Asclepius anymore, it's about meticulous observation recording symptoms and attempting to understand the natural progression of disease. You learn that illness isn't a random curse, but a process with identifiable causes and predictable outcomes. The Hippocratic approach, which you begin to internalize, emphasizes the body's inherent healing power, what they called physis. The physician's role isn't to violently intervene, but to assist physis by identifying and removing obstacles to healing. This often means careful monitoring, recommending changes in diet and lifestyle, and employing gentle remedies rather than drastic surgical interventions or aggressive purges. If you're suffering from a fever, the Hippocratic physician might not immediately bleed you, but instead suggest light broths, plenty of rest, and a comfortable, well-ventilated environment. It's a strikingly modern concept emphasizing supportive care and letting the body do its work. You are introduced to the meticulous practice of prognosis. A Hippocratic physician, unlike earlier healers, isn't just focused on diagnosis. They are keen on predicting the course of a disease. By carefully observing symptoms, the color of your skin, the nature of your excretions, the quality of your breath, they can offer a surprisingly accurate prediction of whether you will recover and how long it might take. This skill provides comfort and confidence to patients, demonstrating a mastery over the unpredictable nature of illness. It's like a weather forecast for your health, offering a glimpse into your future. The Hippocratic Oath, though its exact origins are debated and its text likely evolved over time, embodies the ethical principles that began to guide medical practice. You learn that a true physician pledges to do no harm, primum non nocere, to protect patient confidentiality and to teach their knowledge to worthy students. This shift towards ethical conduct elevates the practice of medicine from mere craft to a respected profession grounded in moral responsibility. It's a remarkable declaration of professional integrity, setting a standard that resonates even today. Academics still debate the precise authorship and timeline of the various texts within the Hippocratic corpus, but their collective impact on medical ethics is undisputed. Consider the detailed case studies you might encounter in the Hippocratic writings. They describe individual patients with astonishing precision. The man from Thasos who had a violent fever. His urine was thin and scanty. He experienced insomnia and frightful visions. This level of objective empirical observation is groundbreaking. It moves away from vague supernatural explanations and towards a systematic recording of clinical data, allowing for patterns to be identified and knowledge to accumulate. It's the birth of evidence-based medicine, albeit in its most nascent form. Beyond Hippocrates, you recognize other philosopher-physicians who contributed to this rational approach. Empedocles, for example, influenced the humoral theory by linking the four humors to the four elements. Earth, air, fire, water, providing a philosophical basis for this medical concept. Alcmaeon of Croton is credited with advocating for anatomical dissection of animals, primarily to understand the body, a radical idea that emphasized direct observation over mere speculation. These thinkers, driven by a thirst for knowledge, continually push the boundaries of medical understanding. The focus on environmental factors is another hallmark of this era. You read texts like Airs, Waters, Places, which meticulously analyze how climate geographical features, prevailing winds, and the quality of water influence the health of a population. A physician, when arriving in a new city, is advised to study these factors carefully to understand the local diseases and their potential causes. This demonstrates an early, albeit imperfect, understanding of epidemiology and the profound connection between the environment and human health. It's like an ancient public health textbook offering guidance on how to avoid getting sick based on your surroundings. You also notice the growing emphasis on diet and regimen as cornerstones of preventive medicine. It's not just about curing illness, but about maintaining health through proper eating, exercise, and moderation in all aspects of life. The ideal is a balanced lifestyle that keeps the humors in equilibrium and strengthens the body against disease. This holistic view, integrating lifestyle choices with physical well-being, is a testament to their sophisticated understanding of the body's interconnectedness. You might even find yourself adopting some of these principles, realizing the wisdom in living a balanced life. However, despite this emphasis on rationality, you recognize that the old beliefs still linger. Many philosopher-physicians, while advocating for empirical observation, still held on to aspects of humoral theory, and some even continue to integrate philosophical or spiritual concepts into their medical practice. It's a period of transition where scientific inquiry is emerging, but hasn't fully shed the cloak of traditional beliefs. Historians still debate the precise balance between rationalism and traditional beliefs in the practices of individual philosopher-physicians, showcasing the complexity of their intellectual landscape. Ultimately, the era of philosophers as physicians marks a profound turning point. It's a shift from seeing illness as an arbitrary act of the gods to understanding it as a natural phenomenon with discernible causes and potential treatments. It emphasizes observation, logical reasoning, ethical conduct, and a holistic approach to health. While they lack the tools and knowledge of modern science, these brilliant minds laid the conceptual and ethical groundwork for medicine, as a systematic rational discipline, forging a path that would eventually lead to the advancements we take for granted today. Just as you begin to feel a sense of optimism about the emerging rational approaches to medicine, you are starkly reminded of the ancient world's ultimate vulnerability, the devastating shadow of epidemics. These aren't just individual illnesses, they are waves of widespread disease that sweep through populations, defying all understanding and leaving a trail of death, despair, and social upheaval. You witness firsthand the terrifying power of these unseen enemies, rendering even the most skilled physicians and the most fervent prayers seemingly powerless. It's like watching a tidal wave approach, knowing you have no way to stop it, only to brace for impact. Imagine the sudden, inexplicable onset of a plague. Perhaps it begins with a few isolated cases, a cough here, a fever there, dismissed as common ailments. But then the numbers swell with a terrifying speed. People who were healthy yesterday are struck down today, their bodies racked by unfamiliar symptoms. The speed and ferocity of the disease are bewildering, sowing panic and fear throughout the city. You see faces etched with terror, eyes constantly scanning for the telltale signs of sickness in their loved ones or neighbors. The most infamous example, and one that looms large in the collective memory, is the plague of Athens during the Peloponnesian War. You feel the palpable fear that grips the city as the disease rages. Thucydides the historian meticulously describes its horrors, people suddenly struck with burning fevers, inflamed eyes, bleeding throats, and violent convulsions. Vomiting and diarrhea become incessant, leading to extreme dehydration. The external skin breaks out in pustules and ulcers. The suffering is immense, prolonged, and agonizing. In the face of such an onslaught, all previous medical understanding crumbles. Humoral theory, with its careful balancing acts, seems utterly inadequate against a foe that indiscriminately strikes down the young and the old, the strong and the weak. The sophisticated observations of the Hippocratics offer little solace when the disease progresses too quickly for any regimen to take effect. Prayers to Asclepius and other gods seem to go unanswered, leading to a crisis of faith among the populace. The very fabric of society begins to unravel. You witness the desperate, often futile efforts to combat the plague. Physicians bravely or foolishly try their usual remedies, bloodletting purges, herbal concoctions, but they seem to have no effect. Many iatroi themselves fall victim to the disease, caught between their duty and the overwhelming contagiousness. You see people attempting to flee the city only to carry the plague with them, spreading it to new unsuspecting communities. Borders are closed, trade ceases, and chaos reigns. It's a grim reminder that when faced with a truly virulent pathogen, ancient societies had almost no effective defense. The impact of epidemics extends far beyond the physical toll. You observe the social and moral decay that often accompanies such widespread death. With so many dying, traditional burial rites are abandoned. Bodies are piled in mass graves or even left unburied, further fueling the disease and the despair. The fear of contagion leads to people abandoning their sick loved ones driven by self-preservation. Laws and social norms break down as desperation takes hold. Why uphold justice when death is around every corner? Why be pious when the gods seem to have forsaken you? This breakdown of social order is almost as terrifying as the disease itself. The prevailing miasma theory offers some explanation suggesting that bad air or corrupt fumes are causing the sickness. While incorrect, this belief does lead to some attempts at prevention, however crude. You might see people burning aromatic woods or herbs in the streets, hoping the smoke will purify the air. Efforts might be made to clear away rotting refuse or stagnant water, though these are often overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problem. Some might try to avoid areas believed to have particularly foul air, retreating to higher ground, or isolated rural areas if they have the means. The lack of understanding about contagion, about how diseases truly spread from person to person, makes effective public health measures impossible. There's no concept of hand washing to prevent germ transmission, no understanding of isolating the sick to break chains of infection, no knowledge of vectors like fleas or mosquitoes. When you see a sick person, you assume it's bad air or an imbalance of humors, not a tiny invisible entity passing from their breath to yours. This fundamental gap in knowledge renders them helpless against diseases like typhoid, smallpox, or what was likely a form of hemorrhagic fever or highly virulent influenza during the Plague of Athens. You also observe the strange psychological coping mechanisms that emerge during such times. Some people resort to extreme piety, offering constant sacrifices and prayers, hoping to appease angry gods. Others descend into nihilism, indulging in reckless behavior, believing that since death is inevitable, restraint is pointless. You might see festivals transformed into desperate bacchanalias or homes emptied as families flee, leaving their dying behind. It's a stark portrait of humanity pushed to its limits, grappling with an invisible force that threatens to wipe them out. For those who survive an epidemic, life is forever changed. They carry the scars of loss, the trauma of witnessing unimaginable suffering, and the quiet resilience of having faced death and emerged. The population is decimated, cities are depopulated, and the economic and social recovery takes generations. These catastrophic events serve as powerful, albeit tragic lessons, highlighting the fragility of human existence and the immense challenge of disease in an age without scientific understanding. Scholars still debate the specific pathogen responsible for the Plague of Athens, but its impact on ancient Greek society is indisputable, reshaping its history and leaving a lasting imprint on its collective consciousness. As you emerge from the harrowing experience of ancient epidemics, you find yourself at the precipice of a new understanding, observing the slow but undeniable legacy and fading echoes of ancient Greek healthcare. The sun, once burning hot on the dusty streets, now casts long, gentle shadows, signaling the close of this particular journey through time. You look back at the temples, the healers, the theories, and the struggles, recognizing that while many practices seem alien or even dangerous by modern standards, they laid the crucial groundwork for everything that came after. It's like watching the first clumsy flight of an early aircraft. It's not graceful, it's not efficient, but it's the beginning of something truly transformative. You see the enduring symbol of the rod of Asclepius, the snake-entwined staff, still a powerful emblem of medicine today. This simple image, born from the sacred healing temples and their mystical practices, continues to represent the healing arts, a silent testament to the lasting power of ancient beliefs. It reminds you that even as science progresses, there's an inherent human desire for symbols of hope and healing, a connection to something larger than ourselves. The most profound legacy, however, is not a symbol, but a shift in mindset. The rational inquiry championed by the Hippocratic school becomes the bedrock of Western medicine. You understand that the emphasis on observation, prognosis, and detailed case studies was revolutionary. It taught future generations to look at the patient, to record their symptoms, and to seek patterns, moving away from purely superstitious explanations, even if their conclusions about the humors were wrong. Their method of inquiry was profoundly right. This commitment to empirical study, however imperfect, is the single greatest gift of ancient Greek medicine to the future. The humoral theory, despite its scientific inaccuracies, persisted for nearly 2 millennia, influencing medical practice all the way into the 19th century. You recognize its fading echoes in historical texts and old medical practices. Its longevity is a testament to its persuasive, comprehensive, and intuitively appealing framework for understanding the body. For centuries, physicians used its language to describe health and disease, to prescribe treatments, and to understand temperaments. It provided a coherent system in a world craving order, even if that order was ultimately based on flawed premises. You reflect on the concept of holistic health that was so central to Greek thinking. The emphasis on diet, exercise, environment, and moderation as crucial components of well-being resonates deeply with modern preventive medicine. While their understanding of the mechanisms was limited, their intuition that lifestyle profoundly impacts health was remarkably prescient. You might find yourself wanting to walk more or to eat more mindfully, a quiet echo of ancient Greek wisdom, finding its way into your own modern habits. The ethical principles embedded in the Hippocratic Oath continue to guide medical professionals worldwide. The concepts of patient confidentiality, avoiding harm, and teaching the next generation of healers are cornerstones of modern medical ethics. You realize that long before complex legal frameworks, these ancient Greek physicians laid down a moral compass for their profession, striving for integrity and compassion in their practice. Scholars still debate the direct lineage of specific ethical clauses from ancient texts to modern oaths, but the spirit of the Hippocratic tradition remains a powerful moral force. However, you also acknowledge the limitations that faded with time. The absence of germ theory, anesthesia, and advanced surgical techniques meant untold suffering and early death for millions. The crude methods for dealing with infection, the terrifying reality of surgery without pain relief, and the devastating impact of unchecked epidemics are stark reminders of how far medicine has come. You recognize the countless lives saved and the immense suffering alleviated by the scientific advancements that would eventually supersede these ancient practices. As the centuries roll on, new discoveries will chip away at the humoral theory. Anatomical studies will become more precise, microscopy will reveal the hidden world of microbes, and chemistry will unveil the true nature of bodily fluids. The philosophical inquiries into the body will eventually evolve into distinct scientific disciplines: biology, chemistry, anatomy, and physiology. The integrated world of the philosopher-physician will slowly fragment into specialized fields, leading to deeper, more accurate, but perhaps less holistic understanding.